Hello guys and welcome to the first edition actually of Home Studio Essentials. So shortly to myself, to introduce myself, I'm actually a songwriter, record producer, also music manager where I'm running publishing activities over my company moveproductions.com, more or less all over the world, with the biggest clients in the US, Canada and also Europe, and some little clients in Asia. So Home Studio Essential is the new series we're running here in our YouTube episodes. So we already launched some home studio product reviews. I mean, that's very interesting for everyone who runs a home studio or wants to build up a home studio for less price, less money and great value. So and now we'd like to give you also some basic information about home recording, and that's why we started and we launched the Home Studio Essentials. So first thing today, what we are doing, let me show you that over here. We created a series then of trainings or online trainings, what we do with you now. So first is your perfect speaker position or monitoring. That's really the first topic we like to launch here, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because there's a big difference whenever it goes after you created the track. I mean, that's an essential thing first, where we also launch another review then on YouTube. Now it goes really, if the track is finished and you like to have a professional mix or even best mix you can have, which is pretty close to the today's industry. So you need two speakers, monitors. You can start, for example, with the Audio BX5, which we have now or testing now in the studio. So that costs you only about $90 per speaker, so that means 180 for two speakers. It's a great speaker. I would say the entry level, you pay for PreSonus KRK5 or such speakers, Adam T5V, you pay nearly 1.5 or double of the price. And M-Audio gives a very great speaker here for $90 to start with. Equal important is what I recommend. You see I have a very small studio over here, home studio. So I would recommend to buy two speaker stands. It costs you here, the DEMOVIDEO system I run, which is very massive, around $60 per pair, not per single unit. So together it's $250 you invest for great speakers and also great monitor stand. Why this is so important? I mean, I'm giving you some information now. I also have a presentation then I'm running. If it goes to the perfect monitoring, we talk about the magic triangle. Maybe you ever heard this. It also has a second name as the equilateral triangle. And what does this mean? I'm going to explain to you it shortly now in this video. Whenever you're sitting in your studio, I'm going to show that you have several options to put your monitors directly here to the table, what I do not recommend. Straight ahead, or you can also turn it in a 60-degree angle. What means a 60-degree angle? It means just I'm not positioning the speakers flat to the wall and it goes to the right and to the left. So we're just turning the monitor to a 60, you see on that line, 60-degree angle with my ears. And then we're talking about the magic triangle for mixing. That's a great position because, you know, all the frequencies from the monitors, main frequencies go like this and not directly to the wall if you turn the speakers. So that's a perfect situation for having the clarity on the sound. So that's really something I would recommend, or which is really, I would say, not necessarily, it's essential to have it. So that's great value for less money. You can optimize your home studio. We're going to listen then to some or one track of mine that you have also an impression what we're doing here. What I want to say, I mean, let's go forward shortly. I mean, you can also see it on the picture over here. You have two options. If you want the monitor stands, you can put it either, depends on your setup you have, even behind your desk or table desk, behind of it, and use that magic triangle. What I do now is put it on the side. Either way, you have a bit more distance, but it's the perfect angle to hear all frequency and drums and synths and every sound you have perfectly. Number two, which is important, I think, in the setup of the perfect sweet spot, is the height of your speakers. Why the height of a speaker is important. So normally in the studio, which I recommend, use a 5-inch speaker, not smaller one. We also tested the 3.5 and 4.5 speaker of PreSonus. I would at least go to a 5-inch speaker for a smaller studio. That's really a perfect size. You don't have to go bigger. It doesn't help you, only if you have a bigger room or studio. 5-inch is perfect. $90 to start with one speaker. So we talk about the height. Height is very important because on a two-way speaker, on the one hand side you have the woofer, and on the upper side you have the tweeter, which is called the tweeter for the mid and high frequencies. So in a perfect setup, you can see it here on the picture, also in my studio. Normally when I'm mixing it all, I'm listening, I'm using my desk here, listening like that. So the tweeter here position should be always at the same height of your ears. This is really that you have a perfect listening to mid and high frequency ranges. The tweeter normally, as you know, also with a subwoofer system, the tweeter actually, or the low frequencies, they're gonna blast everything in the room and everywhere. So that's not really, not really matter where your speaker is placed, the subwoofer. Much more important is that you have the mid and high frequencies exactly at your ear, so you can hear perfectly those frequencies, how it's mixed and what correction it needs. So yeah, that's what I explained you, magic triangle, the perfect sweet spot to listen. I have a graph also in the presentation which I can show you shortly. And maybe this one is important when we talk about the perfect sweet spot. It's how do you manage or how do you arrange with frequencies. And that's always depending, like you use a microphone for recording vocals, it's depending on the room. Here I have a living room. You see, it's not really, I'm not working with any absorbing material, which can be essential, at least, of course, in a professional studio. But this graph shows you shortly from a studio setup where your frequency, your most critical points in a studio, how they really spread in your room. So you have 3 critical positions. Let me explain you that shortly. It's on the one hand side, it's the back wall you're using in the studio. The back wall catches up many frequencies and throws it back. So normally when you absorb a room, it's definitely the back wall, it's the side wall. You normally have a lot of frequencies boosting back or giving reflections that you see also here in this graphic. But that may help if you ever turn your speakers into a 60-degree position, that you don't have that much bouncing back from the walls. And third critical position is the wall behind you. And you see it over here, also here, many frequencies running directly to this wall and bouncing back then to your position. It also differences on the distance you run, how large is your room and the size of your room. As you can hear when I'm speaking here in this room, you have a lot of frequencies bouncing back and reflections. What I'd like to explain with this perfect setup and the sweet spot, I can do perfect mixing without having any troubles with the walls. One short explanation, I have here a microphone reflection filter for recording vocals. So that's actually a XLX large very grand reflection filter from Marantz. And you might be creative, you know, when you're recording or mixing. I'm using this shield now on the side here on this wall, so whenever I have some frequencies from the right speaker going in this side, you know, that will be catched up, and you have to be creative, try it the best with your equipment you have. And I'm gonna show you now a track of mine, just so you have an impression what we're doing, sound like. We're active in many genres, modern genres, pop, Latin, R&B, also in film music, instrumental stuff we are running. So yeah, I need whatever style you mix or produce, you need a perfect setup, and that's really not depending on the quality of your speaker. I mean, most of the monitor speakers you can use for any kind of music or genre you run, so that's not that essential. More essential is to have a good entry-level speaker monitor that shows you all frequencies and corrections you need to make in your mixes. So this is about studio setup, monitoring, and perfect sweet spot in your studio. You see here in red, that's the critical areas, as I told you. And then of course I have here a list of recommendations of studio speakers, which we always have a separate review, but you can see it over here. It's the one I talked about. Adam, KRK, Pre-Solus is a well good speaker, JBL, Mackie series, and audio speakers, and of course the well-known Yamaha HS5, which is a standard actually in studios. So this is more or less the top speakers, 5-inch speakers I can recommend. And yeah, then I would say let's hear some sound to finish this episode of presentation. I think that was more everything about the perfect sweet spot, perfect monitoring in your studio, and with the recommendation to use really a monitor stand, and that gives you perfect setup for mixing. You'd always, before I installed the system today, I have the speakers, the monitors on the desk here, which has a glass roof, and you can imagine underneath the speakers I have this kind of absorbing, you know, these absorbing pads. Even I use this on the glass desk, you know, I suddenly felt many vibrations and bad resonations I had in the room when I just put it here on the table. So don't do this, it's a big error. Invest the $60 in great speaker stands, also in a good monitor, and then you feel comfortable for mixing your tracks. Okay, that was it from today, from Home Studio Essentials #1 with the perfect sweet spot and monitors. Yeah, I hope you like it. Please check also other videos where we test, where we make product reviews for microphone, keyboards, DAW, MIDI interfaces, controllers, and all that stuff. More coming up. I hope you like this. Have a good weekend. See you next time when it comes again to the reviews of MoveProductions.com.
Rain and storm break the silence. A unicorn has lost the way. I can't escape, it's no science. I'm so alone, can get along. The sun ain't shining, no more crying. Now I found you. You take me higher, 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 up to the sky. You take me higher.